We're getting closer to the end of our two-day event. Pekka and Patrick were setting the scene on the first day, and now I'm also inviting you to give us the closing remarks of our event.
So thank you, Jukka, and we will take the first panel first, of course. Winter operations. The winter is coming, no doubt. What kind of winter? Cold winter, windy winter, a heavy snow winter, maybe combination, couple of those. Let's say that was, from our perspective, so from the Nordic perspective, very relevant panel, and I hope also from the point of Southern European operators, it was an interesting panel. And the main themes were planning, and it was well presented by Finavia representative that the planning levels are strategic, tactical and operational planning. That is important to ensure, let's say, traffic flow not to disturb at all or to minimize the disturbance. Then also on that field we have new technology available, and that is, let's say, of course our dream for all of us that we can make use of that new technology. And whenever we are taking new technology, we have to take care about procedures and proper training for those who are working with let's say, those technology. Cooperation, as it was pointed out in every panel, also in this panel, it's one of the key elements to ensure the safety in the future also. And in a winter panel, the role of the regulator was considered challenging, because within Europe we have different kind of winters, or some unlucky have winters that don't have any winter at all. But of course we as a regulator, we have to support those activities, and also maybe we are also promoting and facilitating researches which are necessary for the future. And then we had also the environmental aspect. We were speaking about the fluids, how we could make the treatments in a more, let's say, environmental friendly way. And then finally, could you take the last slide, the outcomes? Yes, sharing the information, best practices and lessons learned, especially those who are maintaining the runways in good and safe conditions, and also the airlines, and it was mentioned also the air traffic controllers. And close cooperation and better communication among airlines, aerodrome operators, ground handling service providers to facilitate de-icing activities. That combination, the cooperation is essential. Enable new technologies, yes, and indeed, very important, invest in training. And enhancing and working together with the regulator. Yes, we have to work together on that side. And actions for EASA to ensure that ground handling roadmap gathers the winter operations and how to make these winter operations sustainable. And also we were looking for you to have that you have a role when researches are done on this field in Europe. Patrick, someone mentioned that when we are speaking about holdover tables, that should you have a role as an EASA on that, maintaining that table or creating a new one? How do you see, Patrick, that?
So I think Vasilios answered this question yesterday. Today, the table is maintained by the FAA, I believe, and we do not see any added value in duplicating the work of the FAA. So there would be very little value for us to do that. Now, we received some comments from the FAA that more and more European airline operators are asking them for some support, advice on how to interpret some of the figures in the tables. And the FAA have had the tendency to tell us, look, we should not be the ones taking care of your operators. Why don't you do that? And so we are looking at how to find the proper positioning for our work on this. It's possible that we may need to develop a dedicated expertise for that. We have one person who is following that. It's Alberto, I think. No, Alberto, you are here? Yes. No, he's not here. Okay, so we have one person who is really following all this, and we will determine what our strategy can be. It's a question of resources, huh? So we are not certain that we can afford to have a dedicated team to work on this. Maybe I will now turn to the panel 2, which was on digitalization. The themes which were developed were about the sharing and analyzing of aviation data for safety and efficiency. An example was taken with the Data for Safety project and other initiatives around the world that are used to gather a large amount of data to have a better predictive and preventive approach to enhance safety and efficiency. It was seen that collaboration, there was a slide on data governance, is essential to share data, and we also saw the importance to put in place a transparent and objective reporting system. There was a discussion on how data can help improving safety as well as contributing to reducing CO2 emissions by better fuel planning, for instance, and there was an example taken on the use of new data-based tools to increase the level of efficiency for departure sequences and departure paths. It was seen that balancing data protection and production, especially in Europe, is a major challenge for that field. Large amounts of data need artificial intelligence to dig through the data and to get the right output out of it. And artificial intelligence is offering a tool to deal with the increased volume and complexity of data generated by the industry. There was a discussion on automation and autonomy and how far this can go. Automation may indeed support decision-making, especially for those activities loading the pilot, but not requiring his or her full attention. But autonomy is something much bigger. It is the real challenge for the future, and that's something that we also discussed in the last panel. The outcome of the discussions were, and it's coming back to, I think, a common theme to a lot of the panels, which is that trust is essential to share data. Technology is supporting, but first, there is a need for a culture which is oriented to share data. Therefore, the challenges are more related to this cultural change rather than technological development. Artificial intelligence can be a source of information, removing the burden of processing of a heavy amount of data and enhancing predictive and preventive safety risk management. It can provide information that could be shared with other regions having similar initiatives to data for safety. But again, there are some limits that we can see in sharing too much data because of the data protection and the need to build trust. if some of the operators trust EASA to manage their data in big data, they would not necessarily trust another foreign organization to use their data. Despite autonomy, something that we can look at in the future, we have to take the benefits of automation today. We need to use automation to cover non-critical operations and activities loading the pilots or other aviation personnel and not allowing them to focus on key and more critical tasks. If we want to look at the future, and this is something that we are currently in EASA working on, we have invested in so-called innovation partnership with industry in order to have an advance notice of all the technological changes which are looked at by the industry and help them innovate so that we can train our own experts, but also we can very early in the process tell the industry what is acceptable in terms of certification or not.
Thank you. And panel 3, aircraft leasing. And we have had a lot of increase in leasing concept, the use of leasing concept, and we can expect further increase for the use of concept. Then behind leasing there are different kind of scenarios and business models. Let's say for the seasonal market purpose and also in case of shortage of aircrafts. And for the AOC holders managing the leasing activities, it's rather complex, and also it means for the authorities, it means very complex oversight activities. And also in that panel, the idea was with the panelists that no compromise with the safety. And the outcomes, leasing provides operational flexibility, but that should not create further risks. Long-term partnership between airlines and leasing companies is beneficial to both, actually for all of us. Group operations are reality within EU. Commonality of standards is a key to ensure safety. Cooperative oversight among member states is also an essential element. And SMS to capture the risks brought by the leasing arrangements, especially in case of wet lease. And EASA ready to play more prominent role on this field, including assessing foreign wet lessors. The term TCO plus was introduced. Competent authority for operators holding AOCs in more than one EU state. Yes, that is the new option available nowadays. And action to EASA to ensure that the regulatory system evolves so that the new business models and operational practices can be deployed in a safe and efficient way. And the clear message was also that it looks like that in the current system there are a lot of bureaucracy without any additional value. So we have to look at that in the future as well.
The panel on SMS resilience recognized that there is commercial pressure, whether we like it or not, and instead of trying to fight against the commercial pressure, we just need to acknowledge that it's there and take it into account. Also in the SMS and in the risk management, we need to make sure that we build into the assessment of risk the experience and the knowledge which has been developed in the potential conflict between commercial pressure and safety management. There was a lot of discussion on what is the behavior or the training of the top management in terms of finding the balance between commercial pressure and safety. And what was found out, but it's also something that we discussed earlier, is that top management is not always committed to the highest safety level, and this was largely shared with the audience in the Slido question. There was a discussion on the lack of resources in NAAs for SMS oversight, and I think there was almost, and it was in Jesper's presentation, a back-to-back equivalence between the lack of, let's say, maturity in SMS on the airline side as well as on the NAA side, and this is something that we should certainly work on. And it is important that the SMS inspectors do not take a tick-the-box approach. There was, I think it was Piotr who mentioned that the lack of SMS findings does not mean necessarily high safety operations, and compliance with SMS requirements does not mean effective SMS either. So this is something that we need to work on, because it's a change of mindset, it's a change of culture. On the outcomes, there was the recognition of the need to build the competence and to provide training for safety managers, accountable managers, as well as NA inspectors, in particular to educate them on this new culture of managing the risk. There was some idea about the need to have more multidisciplinary top management team, and for top managers to understand that safety is a good investment. And we mentioned it, I think, several times. The new basic regulation allows, within the EASA system, to share resources between national authorities, but also to share resources between EASA and national authorities in order to build this competence for the oversight authorities. On the actions, the one action which was proposed was for the airlines to upgrade their SMS to track the impact and the management of commercial pressure, in particular in finding the right balance between the commercial pressure and the risk. And there was an offer which was made by EASA to support airlines and authorities to define competencies and skills needed for top management teams, management teams, and inspectors. And I think we don't need to go into the last panel, which was just concluded some 20 minutes ago. I don't know, I will conclude first and then you conclude, because you are the host, if I may.
Please.
Yes. So just 5 minutes on my side. I would really like to thank you all for participating to this event. I found it personally extremely interesting, and we saw in all the panels, except the last panel, that we had professionals who knew very well their business and that could really share their experience, their knowledge with the audience, and I found it personally extremely useful to have concrete discussions on something which was not theoretical, which was not conceptual, but concrete cases. So I appreciated a lot. I also appreciated the level of questions, feedback from the audience, which showed that you were interested in following the discussions, that you had your own ideas about what would be good, what would be wrong, and how we should perhaps give orientations to EASA or regulatory actions in the future. So I really thank you all for this, because this proved to be a very lively discussion and very lively event. Last but not least, I would like to thank, first of all, the TRAFICOM team for organizing such a nice event. Maybe, if you allow me, can we give a round of applause for the TRAFICOM team? And I would like to thank you, Pekka, for being a gracious host. I would like also to thank the EASA team for helping with the subjects and contributing to this. Can we give as well a round of applause for EASA? So I wish you all a safe trip back to your countries. Hopefully not too much on the winter operations, but let's see if it snows. Thank you very much for being here.
So thank you, Patrick. I had the same observation as you had, and with the same exclusion, that the panelists were exceptional high level. They really did knew what they were speaking, and it was great pleasure to listen what our colleagues were speaking about. And also, on behalf of TRAFICOM, I would like to thank EASA colleagues for the cooperation also in this event. And also I like to thank tapahtuman tekijät, our organizer. You made it very easy for us. Thank you. And Patrick mentioned that, and hoping, I understood in a way, that when you are leaving Helsinki, hopefully you will not have winter conditions. It's not a safety problem. It's not at all. No problem. And yes, it's almost winter, and it has been rather cold, but I can offer you excellent opportunity to come Helsinki in April, in late April, because we have then so-called massive event 2020 here in Helsinki. It covers all the transport modes, and we can expect about 3,000 visitors here. So aviation is, of course, in the program. Welcome back to Helsinki in much more favorable weather conditions. Thank you.
So just a couple more thank yous from us as well. Thank you very much to Pekka and Patrick for your final summary, and generally for the conference. I think everybody's had a wonderful time, as you said. Please do fill in the survey that you mentioned earlier on, because your views on that are really important for when we're designing future conferences. You also have a chance now, if you would like to network a little further or discuss the latest sessions, to carry on in the Winter Garden. That will be open until 5 o'clock with some refreshments there, as yesterday.
I was also planning to thank everybody, but Pekka and Patrick made this very easy for me. I just have to echo what the gentleman just said. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for participating in the discussions. Enjoy the refreshments and the networking opportunity. And safe travels home. Thanks to you all. Maybe see you in April.
Thank you.